My stepdaughter joked that I'm only useful when she needs something, so I stopped being useful and watched her struggle to explain why I changed. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reddit Visuals. I used to believe that if you stayed consistent, generous, and quiet long enough, people would eventually recognize your value. I was wrong. Some people don't notice your worth until the moment it disappears, and even then they'll rewrite history to make themselves look better. They'll claim it was all a misunderstanding, that they never meant it that way, that you're overreacting. But the truth has a way of surfacing, especially when the people who took you for granted suddenly have to function without you. I'm not here because I'm proud of what happened. I'm here because it taught me something I didn't want to learn, and because I know a lot of you have been standing in the same place I was, doing the same things I did, wondering why it never feels like enough, wondering why your effort goes unnoticed until the moment you stop making it. I'm 44 years old. I've been married to my wife, Claire, for just over 7 years now. She has a daughter from her previous marriage, Lena, who's now 19 and in her second year of college. I met Claire when Lena was 10 years old, and we dated for 2 years before getting married when Lena was 12. That means I've been in Lena's life since she was 10. That's old enough to remember who shows up and young enough to still need someone to show up consistently. It's that critical age where kids are forming their understanding of reliability, trust, and what it means when adults make commitments. Her biological father lived about 3 hours away in another city. He was inconsistent in the most predictable way possible. Big promises, long gaps of silence, and the occasional grand gesture that bought him forgiveness for months at a time. Birthday visits that happened 2 weeks late. Christmas presents wrapped in guilt and expensive price tags. He'd disappear for weeks, sometimes months, then show up with concert tickets or a new gaming console or tickets to some theme park, and suddenly all was forgiven. The cycle was reliable in its unreliability. I didn't try to replace him. I didn't need to. And frankly, I didn't want to step into that role in a forced way. I just filled the space he left behind without making speeches about it. I was the one who drove Lena to early morning swim practice 3 times a week, even when it meant leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning, scraping ice off the windshield in January, sitting in the cold bleachers for 2 hours while she trained. The one who stayed up late helping her study for exams she swore she'd fail, breaking down algebra problems and history timelines until they finally made sense, watching her face light up when something clicked. The one who fixed her laptop twice when it crashed during finals week, replaced her phone screen once after she dropped it in a parking lot, and taught her how to parallel park without yelling, even when she nearly took out our mailbox 4 times in one afternoon, and I had to grip the door handle so hard my knuckles went white. I was there for the small things too, the things nobody notices until they're gone. I packed her lunches for school when Claire worked early shifts at the hospital. I helped her pick out clothes for school dances and gave her honest feedback when something didn't look right. I drove her and her friends to the movies, to the mall, to birthday parties, playing chauffeur without complaint. I showed up to her swim meets, even the ones Claire couldn't attend because of work. I was in the stands with a camera, cheering when she finished her races, commiserating when she didn't place. I helped her write college application essays, reading draft after draft, offering suggestions without taking over. I co-signed her first car loan when her father couldn't be bothered to return her calls. I taught her how to check her oil, change a tire, jumpstart a battery. I was there, consistently, quietly, without asking for recognition. I didn't ask for dad status. I didn't need a title or a special place in her life. I just assumed that respect would follow effort. That consistency would build something real over time. That if I showed up day after day, year after year, she'd eventually see me as someone who mattered, not as a replacement for her father, but as someone who chose to be there when he wasn't. That was my first mistake. I assumed care would be recognized. I assumed effort would be valued. I assumed that love, even non-parental love, would be reciprocated in some small way. For the most part, things were fine. Not warm, not hostile. Neutral, cordial, functional. She called me by my first name, which I told myself was okay. Teenagers are complicated, especially teenagers in blended families. Relationships take time. Trust takes time. I wasn't there to force intimacy or demand gratitude. I was there to be reliable. That word mattered to me then, even if I didn't realize how much weight I was putting on it. I wanted to be the person she could count on when her father let her down again. The person who didn't make promises he couldn't keep. The person who just showed up. No drama, no conditions. And I did. For 9 years, I showed up. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was subtle, the way these things always are. A tone change here, a look exchanged with her mother there, a casual assumption that I'd say yes before she even finished the sentence. Can you drive me to campus? Can you pay for this textbook? Can you fix my laptop again? Can you pick up my prescription? Can you help me move this furniture? Can you lend me money until Friday? Can you cover my car insurance this month? Always framed like favors, like she was asking for something special. Always delivered like expectations, like she knew I'd say yes because I always said yes. The requests got bigger. The gratitude got smaller. By the time she was 18 and in college, I was essentially her personal assistant, bank, and chauffeur rolled into one. And somewhere along the way, I became invisible. Not as a person who existed in the house, but as someone whose feelings mattered. I was a function, a utility. I was useful. The joke happened on a Thursday night in late September. I remember it was a Thursday because Claire was working late at the hospital. She's a nurse in the ICU, and her shifts can run long, especially during flu season when the hospital is understaffed and overwhelmed. Lena had 2 friends over, girls from her college dorm, loud, confident, that half-adult energy where everything sounds sarcastic even when it isn't meant to be. They had that college student performative edge, where every story is a little exaggerated and every observation is delivered with maximum attitude for social effect. I was cleaning up after dinner, loading the dishwasher, wiping down the counter, putting away leftovers in Tupperware containers. Normal night. Unremarkable. I'd made pasta with marinara sauce and garlic bread. They'd eaten most of it, left their plates on the table, migrated to the living room with their phones. Nobody had said thank you, but I wasn't keeping score. At least I told myself I wasn't. One of her friends, a girl with bright purple hair, about 6 earrings in one ear and a nose ring, looked up from her phone and asked, "So, who's that?" She was pointing at me like I was a piece of furniture she'd just noticed for the first time. Lena didn't even look up from her screen. She was scrolling through something, half smiling at whatever she was reading. She smirked and said, without hesitation, without even pausing, "Oh, that's just my mom's husband. He's only useful when I need something." The table erupted in laughter. Not the awkward kind, not the nervous kind, the easy kind. The kind that means the joke made sense to everyone there. The kind that means it landed exactly as intended. The kind that means it wasn't the first time she'd said it. I could tell by the way her friends reacted. No shock, no surprise, just recognition. Like they'd heard variations of this before. I froze, not dramatically, not in a way anyone noticed. Just paused mid-wipe, dishcloth in hand, staring at the counter where a smear of marinara sauce had dried. I waited for the follow-up. The correction. The, "I'm kidding, he's actually great." The acknowledgement that it was a joke taken too far. It didn't come. Instead, she added, with this little laugh, this casual cruelty, like, "If I need a ride or money or something fixed, he's great. Otherwise, he's just kind of there, you know? Like furniture, like a lamp or something." More laughter. Louder this time. One of the girls, the one with the purple hair, said, "Oh my God, that's brutal." Lena shrugged, still smiling. "I mean, it's true though. That's literally what he's for." Another girl chimed in. "At least he's useful furniture. My stepdad's just annoying." They all laughed again. Lena nodded. "Yeah, I guess I got lucky. He doesn't try to parent me or anything. He just does what I need and stays out of the way." I finished wiping down the counter, folded the dishcloth into a neat square, set it by the sink, turned around, smiled at no one in particular, and said, "I'm going to grab something from the garage." My voice sounded normal. Steady. That surprised me. I didn't confront her. I didn't argue. I didn't embarrass her in front of her friends. I didn't say a word. I went to the garage, closed the door behind me, sat on a folding chair next to the workbench, and stared at the pegboard on the wall for a long time. Tools hanging in neat rows, screwdrivers, wrenches, hammers, pliers, everything in its place, everything organized, everything useful. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, maybe longer. I don't know. Time felt strange. My hands were shaking slightly. Not from anger, from something else. Hurt, maybe. Realization. Clarity. That was the emotional wound. Not the joke itself, but the confidence behind it. The certainty. The casual cruelty. The fact that she didn't even consider how it would land on me. Didn't even think about whether I might hear it. Didn't care if I did. Because to her, it didn't matter. I was useful. That was my purpose. That was my value. That's all I was. And the worst part, the part that really dug in deep, was that she was right. That's exactly what I'd become. I'd spent 9 years making myself useful, and in doing so, I'd erased myself. I'd become a function, a utility, something to be used when needed and ignored when not. That's when something clicked. Not anger, not sadness. Clarity, cold, sharp clarity. If I was only useful when she needed something, then I would stop being useful. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, out of accuracy. If that's what I was to her, then I'd let her be right. I'd become exactly what she described. Furniture doesn't drive you to campus. Furniture doesn't lend you money. Furniture doesn't fix your laptop or cover your expenses or stay up late helping you study. Furniture just sits there. So that's what I'd do. I'd just sit there. The next morning, Friday, Lena came downstairs around 8:30. She was dressed for class, backpack slung over one shoulder, phone in hand, coffee mug in the other. She didn't look at me. She never really looked at me in the mornings. She just moved through the kitchen like I was part of the architecture. She said, without preamble, without greeting, "Hey, can you drive me to campus? My car's making that noise again." I was sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee and the newspaper. I'd been up since 6. I'd made breakfast for myself. Toast, eggs, bacon. I hadn't made any for her. That was new. Usually I'd make extra, leave it on the counter for her. Not today. I looked up from the paper and said, calmly, evenly, "I can't today. You'll have to figure something else out." She stopped walking, turned around slowly, blinked at me like I'd just told her the sky was green. "What? Why?" I took a sip of coffee, set the mug down carefully. "I've got work." She rolled her eyes, that teenage exasperation that I'd seen 1,000 times. "It'll take like 10 minutes. You're just sitting there reading the paper." "I still can't." She stared at me, waiting for me to elaborate. I didn't. "Are you serious right now?" I smiled, small, polite. "Yeah." She stood there for a long moment, mouth slightly open, waiting for me to crack, to laugh, to say I was kidding. I didn't. I just went back to reading the paper. She huffed, grabbed her bag tighter, adjusted the strap on her shoulder, and muttered, "Unbelievable." Then she turned and walked to the door, slammed it on her way out. The sound echoed through the house. I watched through the window as she stood on the driveway, phone pressed to her ear, frustration written all over her face and body language, arms crossed, foot tapping, jaw tight. She was calling someone, probably multiple people trying to get a ride. Nobody answered. She ordered a rideshare. It cost her $23. I know because she complained about it later, loudly, to her mother. That was the first step. Small, quiet, almost invisible to anyone who wasn't paying attention. But I was paying attention. Over the next few days, I changed nothing about my routine except one thing. I stopped anticipating her needs. I didn't remind her about deadlines or appointments. I didn't refill her car with gas when I noticed it was running low, something I'd been doing for years. I didn't cover small expenses she forgot to Venmo me for, the $5 here, $10 there that added up over time. I didn't check if she'd eaten dinner or if she needed anything from the grocery store when I went shopping. I didn't offer help with her assignments. I didn't ask how her day went. I didn't step in. I didn't smooth things over. I was polite. I was civil. I was present in the house. I just wasn't useful. At first, she barely noticed. The machine kept running on momentum, but then the inconveniences started stacking up, one on top of another, until the pile was too big to ignore. She missed a group meeting on Tuesday because she assumed I'd drive her and didn't arrange alternative transportation. She had to text her project partners an excuse, and they weren't happy. She could feel their frustration through the screen. She ran out of printer ink the night before a major assignment was due and had to scramble to find a 24-hour store, driving 30 minutes round trip at 11 at night. She came home exhausted and frustrated. Her phone screen cracked again when she dropped it in a parking lot after class. She came home that evening holding it up to me, that expectant look on her face, the same look I'd seen hundreds of times before. "Can you fix this?" I was sitting on the couch, reading a book. I glanced at the cracked screen. The damage was pretty bad this time, spiderwebbed across the entire display. I looked back at my book. "You might want to take it to a repair shop." She stared at me, waiting for me to say more. "Are you serious?" "I think so. You've fixed it before." "That was before." "Before what?" I didn't answer, just kept reading. "What's your problem?" she asked, voice rising slightly. I looked up, met her eyes. Calm. Neutral. "No problem. Just busy." She scoffed, shook her head, muttered something under her breath that sounded like whatever, and walked away. I heard her in the kitchen, slamming cabinet doors, making noise to express her frustration. Later that night, I heard her on the phone with one of her friends complaining. "He's being so weird lately. Like, he won't help with anything. I don't know what his deal is." I didn't comment, didn't react, just let it sit. That weekend, her laptop started overheating again. She'd been ignoring the issue for months despite my repeated suggestions to get it looked at. Now it was barely functional, the fan whirring like a jet engine about to take off, the machine shutting down randomly in the middle of tasks. She had a group project presentation due Monday morning, and she was panicking. It was Sunday night around 9 o'clock. She was sitting on the couch, her laptop on her knees, the screen flickering. She closed it in frustration and said, casually like it was already decided, "I'm just going to use your laptop tomorrow, okay?" I was sitting in the armchair across from her, working on my tablet. I looked up. "I'm going to need it." She frowned. "For what?" "For work. I have a report to finish." "Can't you do it later, like in the afternoon?" "No, I need it in the morning." She crossed her arms. "Seriously? You can't just let me use it for one day? It's for school." I kept my voice calm, even. No anger, no frustration. "I'm sure you'll figure something out." She stared at me like I'd just spoken in another language, like I'd suddenly become a stranger. Then she laughed. Not a real laugh, a bitter, disbelieving laugh. "Wow. Okay, I see how it is. Guess you're in a mood." I smiled. Small, polite. "Guess so." She grabbed her broken laptop, stood up and went to her room. Slammed the door. I heard her making phone calls, her voice muffled but clearly frustrated. She ended up having to drive to one of her group members' apartments to borrow their laptop, which meant a 40-minute round trip late at night. She got back after 11, exhausted. The next morning, she overslept because she'd stayed up late finishing the presentation. She was late to class. Her group had to present without her for the first 10 minutes. Her professor docked them points for lack of coordination and preparedness. She came home that afternoon and didn't speak to me, just went straight to her room and stayed there for hours. Claire asked me that night if everything was okay between Lena and me. We were in bed, lights off, talking quietly. "She seems upset," Claire said. "Is something going on?" I thought about how to answer. "We're fine." "Are you sure? She's been complaining that you're not helping her with things anymore." I turned toward Claire in the dark. "Did she say why I might not be helping?" Claire was quiet for a moment. "She said you're being difficult." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Did she say anything else?" "Like what?" I decided to tell her. "Not everything. Just enough. She made a joke about me in front of her friends last week, said I was only useful when she needed something. Said I was like furniture." Claire went very still. I could feel the tension in the mattress. "She said that?" "Word for word." There was a long silence. Then Claire said quietly, "I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Still, that's not okay." I agreed. "No, it's not. Do you want me to talk to her?" I thought about it. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because I want to see if she figures it out on her own. If you talk to her, she'll apologize because she got caught. I want to know if she apologizes because she actually understands what she did." Claire didn't like that answer. I could tell by the way she shifted in bed, the way she sighed. But she respected it. She's always respected my boundaries, even when she doesn't agree with them. "How long are you planning to do this?" she asked. "As long as it takes." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Okay, but if it goes too far, we need to talk." I agreed. "We will." But I didn't think it would go too far. I thought it would resolve itself naturally. I thought Lena would notice, reflect, and adjust. I was half right. The social repercussions started about a week and a half after the initial joke. Lena's friends began asking questions, and I wasn't there for most of these conversations, but I pieced them together later from things Lena said, things Claire overheard, things that filtered back to me through the small-town network of college students who all seemed to know each other's business. Why was Lena always late now? Why didn't she have reliable rides anymore? Why was she suddenly stressed about money and logistics and practical things she'd never had to worry about before? Why couldn't she just ask her mom's husband for help like she used to? The questions made her uncomfortable. They forced her to explain, and the more she tried to explain, the worse it sounded. She told one of her friends, the girl with purple hair, that I was being difficult, that I was acting weird, that I was holding some kind of grudge over nothing. The friend said something like, "Isn't he the guy you said was only good for rides and money? The furniture guy?" And Lena, not thinking it through, said, "Yeah. Turns out he's not even good for that anymore." The comment got passed around. Then another friend asked about it, then another. Pretty soon, the joke wasn't funny anymore. It was just a description, an explanation for why Lena's life had suddenly gotten harder, why she was struggling with things that used to be easy, why she seemed stressed and disorganized. And the more she tried to explain it, the worse it sounded. Because how do you tell people that the person you dismissed as furniture has stopped acting like furniture, and now you're struggling? How do you frame that in a way that doesn't make you look ungrateful, entitled, cruel? You can't. She tried. I know because one of her friends, a guy named Marcus from her biology class, came to the house one evening to pick her up for a study group. I answered the door. He was polite, friendly. We chatted for a minute while Lena got her stuff together. He said, "Hey man, I just want to say, I think it's cool that you help Lena out so much. She talks about you sometimes." I raised an eyebrow. "Does she?" He nodded. "Yeah, I mean, not always in the best way, but yeah." I didn't ask him to elaborate. I just said, "Well, things change." He looked confused, but didn't push it. Lena came downstairs, and they left. But that interaction stuck with me, not always in the best way. That phrase rattled around in my head for days. Later that week, I overheard part of a conversation between Lena and another friend in the hallway. I wasn't eavesdropping intentionally. I was in the kitchen, and they were standing just outside the front door, thinking they had privacy. The friend said, "I don't get it. Why is he being such a jerk?" And Lena said, voice frustrated and tired, "He's not a jerk. He's just, I don't know. He's different now." "Different how?" Silence. Then, quieter, almost like she didn't want to say it out loud. "I think I pissed him off." "What did you do?" Another long pause. I could picture her shifting her weight, avoiding eye contact. "Nothing. Just a stupid joke." "What kind of joke?" "It doesn't matter. He's overreacting." But her voice didn't sound convinced. It sounded defensive, uncertain. The tension in the house grew thicker. It was like living in a house with someone who speaks a different language. We existed in the same space but couldn't quite communicate. Claire noticed, of course. She's perceptive, especially about emotional undercurrents. She asked me one night after Lena had gone to bed early if something was wrong between us. We were sitting in the living room. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. Some crime procedural playing in the background, actors delivering lines we'd heard 100 times before. I told her the full truth this time, not angrily, not dramatically. I repeated the joke, word for word, what Lena had said, how her friends had laughed, how she'd doubled down, added details, compared me to furniture. Claire set down her wineglass on the coffee table with a sharp clink. She said that? In front of 3 of her friends. Claire's jaw tightened, her hands balled into fists on her lap. I don't even know what to say. I shrugged. There's not much to say. She said what she thinks. That's not what she thinks. She was showing off for her friends. Maybe, but it came out too easily, too naturally. That's not something you just improvise on the spot. That's something you've thought before. Claire was quiet for a long time. She picked up her wine glass again, took a long sip, set it back down. I'll talk to her, she said finally. I shook my head. I don't want you to. She looked at me, confused and a little frustrated. Why not? She can't just say things like that. It's disrespectful. I know. Then let me talk to her. No, I said, keeping my voice steady. Because if you talk to her, she'll apologize because she got caught. Because her mom is mad. Because there are consequences. I want to see if she apologizes because she actually understands what she did. Because she recognizes that it hurt me. Not because she's in trouble. Claire didn't like that answer. I could see it in her face, the way her brow furrowed, the way her lips pressed together. But she nodded slowly. How long are you planning to keep this up? As long as it takes, I said. Days? Weeks? However long she needs to figure it out. Claire sighed. She reached over and took my hand, squeezed it gently. I love you, and I'm sorry she said that. You've been nothing but good to her. I know, I said, but she doesn't. The final humiliation moment didn't happen at home. It happened 3 weeks after the original joke, at a family dinner that Claire's parents had been planning for months. Claire's parents were visiting from Ohio, staying with us for a long weekend. Her brother, Daniel, and his wife, Rachel, drove up from 2 hours away to join us. Lena's aunt and uncle, people she'd known her whole life, people whose opinions mattered to her. Everyone sitting around the dining room table on a Saturday evening, talking about college, plans, internships, career goals, the future. The table was full. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, rolls. I'd helped Claire prepare most of it. Lena had done nothing, as usual. Claire's mom, Linda, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, asked Lena how school was going. Lena sighed dramatically, pushing mashed potatoes around her plate with her fork. It's fine, just really stressful lately, like I feel like I'm doing everything on my own now. Her Aunt Rachel, who'd always been fond of Lena, raised an eyebrow. On your own? Don't you have help at home? Lena hesitated, just long enough for it to be noticeable, for the pause to feel heavy. Not really. Her grandmother Linda frowned deeply. She set down her fork and looked directly at Lena. What about him? She nodded toward me. I was sitting at the end of the table eating quietly, staying out of the conversation, observing. Lena's face flushed slightly, color rising in her cheeks. She shrugged, trying to play it casual. I mean, he's just kind of there. The room went quiet. Forks stopped moving. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Claire's brother Daniel looked at me, then at Lena, then back at me. There, he said. What does that mean? Lena shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Her hands fidgeted with her napkin. I just mean he doesn't really help out like he used to. Her Uncle Daniel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Isn't he the one who's been driving you everywhere and paying for your stuff and fixing your car and helping with your homework for the last 9 years? Lena's face went bright red. Her eyes darted around the table, looking for an ally. I mean, yeah, but what? Her grandmother Linda asked, voice sharp and cutting. Lena looked at me desperately, like I might jump in and save her. I looked back, calm, neutral, expressionless. No rescue coming. She laughed nervously, a high-pitched sound that didn't match the moment. It was just a joke. I didn't mean anything by it. Her grandmother didn't smile, didn't soften. What joke? Lena's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. She looked at Claire. Claire stared back at her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. No help there either. I said something dumb to my friends. It wasn't serious. Her Uncle Daniel leaned forward. What did you say? Silence, long and thick and suffocating. Lena looked down at her plate, mumbled something inaudible. Speak up, her grandmother said. Lena's voice was barely a whisper. I told my friends he was only useful when I needed something. Nobody spoke. The silence stretched out, filled the entire room, pressed down on everyone. Her grandmother's expression hardened into something cold and disappointed. "And now you're surprised he stopped being useful?" Lena didn't answer. Her Aunt Rachel shook her head slowly. "That's cruel, Lena." "I didn't mean it like that," Lena said quickly, voice rising, defensive. "It was just a stupid joke. I didn't think he'd hear it." Her Uncle Daniel looked directly at me. "Did it sound like a joke to you?" I took a sip of water, set the glass down carefully. "Not really." Lena's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just sat there, frozen, unable to explain herself in a way that didn't make it worse. Every word she tried to add just dug the hole deeper. Her grandmother said, quietly but with absolute finality, "You should be ashamed of yourself." That was it. The final, public reckoning. Not because I orchestrated it, not because I planned it, but because the truth finally had an audience, and the audience didn't find it funny. Lena excused herself from the table, went to her room, didn't come back down for the rest of the night. Claire followed her after a few minutes. I stayed at the table. Linda looked at me with something like sympathy. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be," I replied. It needed to happen. Daniel nodded. "You've been more than patient, man." I appreciated that. We finished dinner. The mood was somber but not hostile, just honest. After everyone left, after the dishes were done, after the house was quiet again, Lena found me in the hallway outside my bedroom. It was late, after 11. I was getting ready for bed. She stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than I'd seen her in years. "You could have said something at dinner," she said quietly. I looked at her. I did. That night in the kitchen. I left the room. That was me saying something. "You didn't tell me it hurt you. Would it have mattered?" She swallowed hard. "I don't know." "Exactly," I said. "I didn't mean it," she whispered. I nodded. "I know. Then why are you doing this?" I thought about that for a long moment. Because if I keep being useful when I'm not respected, I'm teaching you that it's okay to treat people like tools, like objects, like furniture. Her voice cracked. "I don't treat you like a tool." "You did. You do. You've been doing it for years, Lena. And I let you because I thought you'd grow out of it. I thought you'd eventually see me. But you didn't." "That's not fair," she said, tears finally falling. "Maybe not," I said gently. "But it's true." She stood there for a long time, crying silently, and I let her. I didn't hug her, didn't comfort her, just let her sit with the weight of what she'd done. Eventually she said, "I'm sorry." "I believe you," I said. "But sorry isn't enough yet." "What do you want from me?" she asked. "I want you to understand what respect looks like, what gratitude looks like, what it means to see someone as a person, not a function." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Okay, okay," I echoed. She turned and went to her room. The real-life fallout wasn't explosive after that. It was slow, gradual, uncomfortable. She started doing things herself, paying her own expenses, making her own arrangements, figuring out transportation, handling her own problems. She stopped asking for rides, stopped assuming I'd cover things. She stopped joking about me, stopped making dismissive comments. She started noticing little things, like the fact that I'd been doing her laundry for years, that I'd been the one who restocked the snacks she liked, that I'd been keeping track of her car maintenance, her insurance renewals, her doctor's appointments, that I'd been there, consistently, quietly, without asking for anything in return. And now I wasn't. Not because I didn't care, but because caring without respect had turned me into exactly what she said I was. Furniture. Weeks passed, then months. The house felt different, colder, more distant, but also more honest. Claire asked me one night, about 2 months into this, if I thought I was being too hard on Lena. We were in bed, talking in the dark. "She's trying," Claire said softly. "I can see it." "I know she is," I said. "Then maybe it's time to meet her halfway." I thought about that. Maybe. But I need to see more. I need to see that it's real, that it's not just performative, that she's not just doing it to make things comfortable again. Claire sighed. What does real look like to you? Consistency, acknowledgement, actual change in behavior, not just words. How long? As long as it takes, I said again. Claire squeezed my hand in the dark. I love you and I support you, but don't lose her in the process of teaching her. That hit me hard. I don't want to lose her, I admitted. Then find a way back eventually. Just make sure she earns it. I agreed. I will. One night, about 3 months after everything started, Lena knocked on my door. It was late, after 11. I was reading in bed. She stood in the doorway, hands shaking, slightly, voice small and uncertain. Can we talk? We went to the living room, sat on opposite ends of the couch, the same couch where she'd made the joke months ago. She didn't cry this time. She didn't dramatize. She just said, quietly and clearly, I didn't realize how much you did until you stopped. I nodded. I know. I thought you didn't care, she said. Like, I genuinely thought it didn't matter to you, that you were just doing it because you had to, because you married my mom. That one hurt more than the joke. I did it because I wanted to, I said, because I care about you. I always have. Her voice broke slightly. Then why did you stop? Because you made me feel like it didn't matter, like I didn't matter, like I was just a service provider. She looked down at her hands, picked at a thread on the couch cushion. I was embarrassed, she said finally. Of what? Of needing you, she said. My dad's never around. He never has been. And you're not my dad. So I didn't want people to think I was dependent on you. I didn't want to admit that I needed you more than I needed him. So I made it sound like you were just there, like it wasn't a big deal, like you didn't matter. I let that sit for a moment. Let it breathe. Making me small doesn't make you bigger, I said quietly. It just makes both of us smaller. She nodded, tears finally falling again. I know that now. Do you? Yes, she said firmly. I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. Not because I got caught, not because everyone's mad at me, but because I hurt you, because I made you feel invisible, because I took you for granted. I believed her. Not because the words were perfect, but because they were honest, raw, real. Thank you, I said. Are we okay? She asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. We're getting there. Things didn't snap back to how they were before. They changed, evolved, slowly, carefully. I didn't become useful again overnight. I waited. I watched. I let her rebuild trust through action, not just words. She started saying thank you for small things, started asking instead of assuming, started acknowledging what I did instead of minimizing it, started inviting me into conversations instead of talking around me, started introducing me to her friends as someone who mattered, not just someone who was there. She started doing things for me too. Small things, making coffee in the morning, picking up groceries when I was busy, offering to help with yard work, asking about my day, noticing when I was tired or stressed, treating me like a person. It took months. But it happened. Slowly, genuinely. Now, a year later, things are different. Better. Not perfect, but real. She asks for help sometimes. I say yes sometimes. Sometimes I say no, and that's okay. Because the relationship isn't built on usefulness anymore. It's built on respect, mutual respect, recognition, appreciation. And that, I've learned, is the only foundation that lasts, the only foundation worth building on. So here's my question to you. Was I the asshole for stepping back instead of calling her out directly? Or was this the only way the lesson could land? What would you have done in my place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if you found this story meaningful, unsettling, or a little too familiar, please like the video and subscribe to Reddit Visuals. It helps the channel grow, and it helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them. Because sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we teach by stepping back, and sometimes the people who take us for granted only realize what they had when they have to live without it. Sometimes love means letting someone struggle so they can learn what respect actually means. Thanks for watching.